The 2018 general elections. The issues that matter. The people that matter. This is Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan. Brought to you by Extra Supermarket.
Good evening and namaste to all of you on Straight Talk again tonight after Diwali, of course, yesterday. Hope you had a good Diwali all around Fiji and those also listening all around the world in different parts of the world. Big Bula Vinaka to all of you as well. So tonight we had anticipated that we will have three parties talking about mainly employment and industrial relations issues and other issues that you have been sending to our texting platforms and also calling us in. However, Sodelpa's Mikaele Lewere said he had some commitments and cannot come for Straight Talk tonight. But we have the FijiFirst candidate and Minister for Employment, Mr. Jone Usamate, and NFP candidate, Mr. Attar Singh, who are in studio tonight on Straight Talk to tell you what they think about the different issues in relation to employment, industrial relations, and other matters that you have asked for. So on behalf of listeners on Viti FM and our viewers on Facebook, Fiji Village, we I'd like to warmly welcome you in our studio, Mr. Usamate and Mr. Singh, and thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
Naka, thanks for the welcome.
Thank you.
Now, first of all, how's campaigning going on? We've just got a few days left before the campaign blackout at 7:30 a.m., Mr. Singh.
Well, you know, it's been a very short campaign period given the new laws and the late announcement of the writ. So we've had about 6 weeks. It's been 6 weeks of real hard work, long nights, late nights, and of course Fiji campaign also includes a lot of grog. So it's been quite tiring.
Is there Usamate?
Yeah, I think same. It's been intense. Been a lot of movement around, meeting a lot of people, talking to them. So as usual, campaigns are always tough. And now that we're in the last stretch, we can see the tape ahead of us. And after that, we'll just have to wait to see what the voters say.
Now, talking about manifestos, of course, NFP released their manifesto last week. And of course, you are campaigning with your manifesto. You've got a few rallies coming up in the next few days?
Yes, we are going to Lambasa tomorrow. There's a rally in Lambasa on tomorrow at in Civic Centre. And then we come back on Saturday. There's a rally at the Richikul Primary School on Saturday. So, yeah, those are the last two planned.
And Mr. Usamate, the manifesto for FijiFirst is still not out. A lot of people are still asking for it. What's the story there?
Well, basically for FijiFirst, the manifesto, if you want to know what FijiFirst has been doing, you have to look at our track record, what we've been doing, what we've been improving, the impact that we've been making on the people of this country. And obviously our manifesto is all about tweaking that, keep on improving what we've already done. This weekend too, we have our family fun days out in the West, so hopefully a lot of people will turn up to hear our leaders of the party and the other, what do you call them, candidates participating in that event.
Now, going straight into it, other issues that people want to hear what the FijiFirst has to say about it. We've got the Minister for Employment here and, of course, NFP candidate Attar Singh, whose background is mainly in union work. In relation to employment opportunities and investment, FijiFirst.
Well, for employment opportunities, the crux of what FijiFirst has been doing is to focus on economic growth. When you grow the economy, you create more opportunities for employment. There's more investment, there are more companies created, and this you can see the crux of what we've been doing this past year. We initially set the foundation, and we're beginning to see the benefits now over the past 9 years. We've now had 9 years of consistent economic growth. Consistently, this is the first time this has happened. We've had other governments in the past have had up to 7 years growth, but it has been up and down. We now have had these 9 years of consistent economic growth, and it's been reflected in our unemployment stats. They've gone down. We're beginning to see the figures that are coming from the Reserve Bank of Fiji, which tracks the advertisements in the papers. I've noticed that initially in 2017, they had the number of investment went up by around 13.6%, and already this year up again by 8.2%. So this focus on investment, this focus on making sure that we're creating the right climate where people have confidence in the economy, people that have left the country are bringing money back into the country, places like Lambasa that used to be down in the dumps, so to speak, a few years ago, you go there now, there's a burst of excitement. There's excitement in the air. People are investing, and it's being translated into jobs and opportunities for people. The FNPF registrations are showing about 20,000 new entrants into FNPF every year. I think this year and also the past year. So that is also a reflection that is focused on the economy. And all the fundamentals that we've had, a good industrial relations climate with the legislations that we have, and all of the other aspects that FijiFirst has been focused on, is beginning to see the impact in terms of employment opportunities.
So you're saying you're creating jobs at an average of 20,000 a year now?
Those are the registrations that are coming through from the FNPF, the new people that are registering to FNPF. So these are all indicators. And I think the good indicator so far has been the unemployment survey, which has dropped down from, I think the 2010 unemployment survey had unemployment at around 7.1%. The census has it down to 4.5%. But our challenge still remains youth unemployment. Youth unemployment is at 18%. But that is not something that is just seen in Fiji. It's something that's worldwide. We've seen countries in the world where unemployment for the youth can go as high as 40%. So in Fiji, we still have challenges, but there's been consistent, there's been a lot of improvement in employment opportunities and employment growth in our country.
In studio tonight on Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan, we have the Minister for Employment, Mr. Jone Usamate, and FijiFirst candidate. And of course, we have NFP candidate, Mr. Attar Singh. Mr. Singh, what is NFP's plan on employment opportunities and investment?
Thank you, Vijay. I think what the minister just said, the level of growth in the country and the economy has been slow, has been low. I think we need a higher level of growth if we are to create the kind of jobs we want. We all know, as a matter of fact, that there are many of our students, university graduates living, coming out of universities who don't have jobs. Those who find jobs are finding jobs at very low salaries, sometimes as low as $8,000, $9,000 a year. So there's obviously a whole lot that needs to be done. And we believe that the business climate needs to be improved. I think the business the ranking of Fiji's ranking in terms of doing business and Fiji's ranking both in terms of starting business has gone really bad, and that has to be improved. And this has happened because of the various constraints that the FijiFirst government has brought in terms of costs of doing business. I think if these were reviewed and these were reduced, we would be able to attract more foreign investors in the country, and also encourage more local investors to start growing their businesses or open up new businesses, and that is how we can grow jobs.
Cost of doing business, he's saying you're very restrictive there, Mr. Usamate.
I think that's I don't agree with what he's saying. I mean, obviously government has invested a lot into infrastructure and development in this country. It's reduced communication costs, the cost of communication. We've introduced fiber optic cables, making it easier for companies to be anywhere around the world and to be able to provide the business that they do. We've reduced taxation rates for companies. Ease of business issue, it's also an issue about who prepares those ease of business reports.
Who prepares them?
I mean, who is the people that they source to give feedback? I mean, if you need to source the right kind of people to give you the feedback. Obviously, if all the feedback is coming from one group of people, from one particular law firm, then you're going to get a biased view of the ease of doing business. But over and above that, we are now working with some Singapore consultants, looking at the ways in which we can increase or hasten the way business can start operating in our country. So in terms of making it easier for business, massive growth in investment, reduction in taxation rates for companies, it's attracted people here. People who have left this country, who thought that the grass was greener on the other side, they're bringing money back into our country. Obviously, there's a level of optimism, there's a level of confidence in what the FijiFirst government is doing. People don't invest money because they have lack of confidence in the economy. They're bringing their money in, it's translating into business opportunities, and that will lead to growth. We are seeing growth in the business process outsourcing. A lot more of our people coming out with the university degrees are getting opportunities there. We have now Wairabetia opening. There's going to be a lot of ICT investments there. We are seeing the focus on the YES entrepreneurship program, focusing on people that have technology qualifications and trying to get them not only to have jobs, but also to start thinking about becoming job creators themselves. So I think for the way that I see it, there's a lot of positive enthusiasm about our country right now.
The World Bank ranking speak for themselves. I mean, the ease of doing business for Fiji has gone to 101 out of 190 countries. The ease of starting a business, we are on 160 out of 190. Basically as good as Solomon Islands, a small country like Solomon Islands. So the point is, there's a whole lot of improvement that can be done, and we will be looking at that.
The issue that Mr. Usamate brought up, that the report is just coming from one law firm. What do you have to say about that?
Which reports come from one law firm?
I think there's what group is it that gets some people? I think the way they prepare the report, they get opinions from certain people. Now, if a lot of those opinions are coming from a number of people from the same law firm, obviously,
well, I can't see.
Because it's basically a perception.
I mean, it's incredible.
Perception. It's a report of people's perceptions. And, it's like if you don't have a random sample of the population, what you get is a biased perception of the population. If you're just getting the perception of a group of people, obviously it's their perceptions that are going to come through. So that is a factor in all of this. That is something that
obviously these would be reports based on surveys conducted, in which the participants would obviously be business people. They obviously be academics and others. So these are local players. This is where the survey comes from. It's their perception, and it's the perception that matters. And unless the perception is right, unless the perception is that's your allegation. I mean, how
you're saying it's not?
No, it's not. I mean, that's what we got to go by. That is all we have. That's all we have. And I think on the ground, and this reflects what's happening on the ground.
Business firm, I think they provide
it reflects on the ground what's happening on the ground.
Mr. Usamate, for FijiFirst, you're saying you will have a consultancy group from Singapore?
They're already in place.
They are doing an assessment.
You see, when you want to transform the ease of doing business, you have to look at the processes that involve a lot of different players, all the different agencies. So it's about improving that whole process. So that is what we're doing. All the different agencies, my ministry is included, Ministry of Employment, our OHS unit, they're part of that process. So all of the agencies have got together. They mapped the current process, the processes that are already in place, and they are now developing the new process to ease the speed with which the business can start up.
So he admits. I mean, he admits that a whole lot more can be done.
Oh, it's always like that. You never reach perfection,
Yeah, a whole lot more can be done, and that's what we're making.
Improvement.
You will go with that report and you will do something about that. Now, how will you create jobs? He's saying he's saying, let me finish, please. He's saying that 20,000 jobs on average are created on a yearly basis now. What will NFP do?
No, that is not the average. I think that the figure, if you take the FNPF figure, that does not necessarily reflect a full-time employment figures. Those are people who may be enrolled and in the FNPF, they work for a while, go away, disappear, come and work again. So there could be a whole lot of
do you have
part-time,
proof of other figures then?
That's a whole lot of part-time precarious employment. So that is not a very reliable figure, and Mr. Usamate knows that. What we need is full-time equivalent of the number of jobs that have been created. That's what we need, FTEs, and those figures are very difficult to come by from the ministry.
Ministry? What do you have to say?
In this issue about unemployment, the only time that you can get figures when you do surveys. But in the absence of surveys, you have to do these proxy indicators. And this is a very good proxy indicator of employment. Together also with the advertisements that come through the papers that the Reserve Bank does. And I believe that FCF, they also do their optimism surveys. Surveys about the number of jobs that the industries think might be created. And all of that has been fairly positive. So because it's positive, all of these indicators are indicating that the employment is growing. And ultimately, the ultimate indicator is the unemployment figures, where there's been a consistent downward trend ever since the 2010-2011 unemployment survey, right down to the census that we had in 2017.
Now, talking about youth employment, what types of initiatives do you have in store for youth employment?
Youth employment is a very key area, Vijay. Of course, public sector jobs need to grow as well. But in the private sector, I mean, the minister did mention the areas of IT areas. That's an area that we can create jobs. There's been plans for IT job growth for a long time. They haven't been implemented. We hear now about Warambithia. There is one area. But we also need to grow the economy generally. I mean, youth don't just do one kind of job. We need to grow the economy generally, attract investments generally.
How will you create it? How will you create the jobs?
job creation
Which
is
areas?
job creation is by investment, and we're looking manufacturing as well. We're looking at IT areas. These are areas that where we need to grow.
Which specific areas, and how will you make sure that there's more jobs there? How will you do it?
It's about attracting investors into these areas. We also need to get jobs in the
How
agricultural
will you
sector.
attract them?
Agricultural sector is also down, Vijay. Agricultural sector jobs can also be grown. So those are the key areas that are being looked at.
Mr. Usamate, how will you create more jobs, youth employment specifically? How will you create them?
Well, obviously, there's always a link between economic growth and employment. But I think one of the key things that we are focusing on fine-tuning is making sure that we have the kind of workforce here that attracts investors. There's a lot of talk about the workforce that we have in Fiji. There's a lot of education and training going on, but there's still a lot of comments about the industry that perhaps sometimes they don't actually meet what the needs are. So there's a strong focus also from the new national employment policy that we're setting up in the ministry that is being dealt with across by different ministries to see how can we make sure that we fine-tune the abilities of our workers. Because when you have a good, strong workforce, we have a fairly good, strong workforce now. We've been building it up, but there's always opportunities for improving it. When you have that workforce, it attracts people.
Which
We have
specific
also
industries, Mr.
different- Well,
Usamate?
there's ICT industries, obviously in Warabitia. There could be ICT opens up a whole host of different types of industries. You can actually do accounting and auditing from here for clients offshore. You can do all those kinds of different industries using the graduates that are coming out of our university. Also, the big investment that we've had in infrastructure development, this in itself makes it attractive for people to come. We're expanding our roads, we're expanding our airports, our electricity, all of these things are being done, and it creates a better environment for investors to come in. The incentives that we have for the taxation rates, I believe for industries has gone down. We've seen organizations like, was it ANZ? They set up some of their business operations here because they found it attractive in terms of the incentives. So it's a whole range of tax incentives. It's raising the economy, making sure the infrastructure is there, making sure we have the right kind of workforce that attracts employers. All of these things to help to contribute to bring them in and to raise employment in our
So for
country.
those listening out there, those are the two parties on what they have to say to you about youth employment. Now, opportunities in the urban and rural areas. This is employment opportunities in the urban and rural areas. Mr. Singh, specifically, what do you have?
Yeah, just picking up from what the minister was talking about, I think one other area that we need to focus very much on, and that's training. But the recent years, the government has lost focus on training technical workers. And I think we hear from the industry, employers are complaining that the kind of technical workers they get in the skills, in the trades area, that they are not sufficiently qualified or they don't have these sufficient or required skills. So we need to relook at, it's our view that we need to relook at the revamping of the apprenticeship training scheme. Minister is quite familiar with, both of us are quite familiar with it. It's something that needs to be revamped so that we can get the industry also to provide assistance and training of skilled workers so that we can have better workers in these areas. What was the rest of the question?
Urban and rural areas,
Rural.
specific areas where you will create jobs in urban and rural areas. Because we have people listening and watching want to know what NFP will do if they come into government. In urban and rural areas.
Rural areas generally is agriculture. Our rural areas is lot of agricultural work, and we have a focus on agriculture. We want to grow the dairy industry. We are talking about revamping the sugar industry. We are talking about paying $100 million, $100 a ton for sugar farmers. We also want to rebuild the Penang mill, growing the jobs in those areas. We also want to look at plans to attract investment in those rural areas, so that people to avoid rural urban drift. So the factories are set up in areas which are rural, semi-rural, where people can find jobs in their own localities. We see a lot of this happening on the coast with the hotel and tourism industry, but we need to do other industries in other areas.
Mr. Usamate, specific areas as far as urban and rural areas for those people listening out there, of course, on Viti FM and on Facebook, on Fiji Village, what do you have in store for them?
Well, I think if you look back at what the government has been doing these past few years, there's been a very consistent approach to making it more attractive for investors to come and invest in rural areas. We've had the Look North policy. We've made it tax-free. There's been a whole host of incentives to establish small enterprises, micro-enterprises in the north that not only allows people to have a living for themselves, but at the same time helps them to become job creators in their own right. So that has been something that has been very strong for us. Been consistent. Now we have the tax-free zone that extends, I think, from Korovo, or is it from Nausori, all the way up, that's it, right into the west end of the Viti level. That also, we've had the optic cable that has been laid across the north, is it, what side? From Korovo, up that end. All of these things are making it more attractive for people to come in. We've had the extension of the grid of electricity and water all along these areas. So by putting in the infrastructure, we're inviting investment to come in. But not only for people to get jobs, we are also encouraging people to become job creators in their own right. From the agricultural ministry, there's been a strong focus on establishing up cold storage areas where farmers can drop their produce to keep them fresh. There's been an approach in the Singatoka Valley. We've tasseeled that road to make sure that the farmers, when they grow their produce, it does not get damaged in those gravel roads. So all of these, whether it's agro-processing, whether it's helping people to start up small business that create more employment, and even creating tax-free zones all along that stretch of Fiji in the north and along the is it the northwest or southwest?
Northwest.
Northeast side of Viti level. All that is going to help people to bring job opportunities in that area.
Now, moving on to another issue that people are always talking about, and that is the unemployment rate. We've talked about that according to the Reserve Bank of Fiji statistics, and you've also quoted that unemployment rate is at a 20-year low of 4.5%. Mr. Singh, do you agree with that report from the Reserve Bank of Fiji and what the government is saying?
Well, those are the stats that we have, so that's the stat we have to go by. But whether that reflects truly what's happening on the ground is a question that one needs to raise, because we know, as a matter of fact, that our school leavers, our graduates aren't finding jobs. If they are finding jobs, then the jobs are not gainful employment. People are either employed in part-time job, precarious jobs, or people are even if they are employed full-time, they are employed on low-paid jobs. So I think we need to be a bit cautious about how to look at those figures and what those figures really mean.
Mr. Usamate?
The way that the indicators that are used and the definitions of employment and unemployment that are used here for these surveys are the ones that are used internationally. And in order for us to be able to track our employment, we use the way that it's measured internationally so we can benchmark with other countries. So this figure, the figure of unemployment that we have down to 4.5%, is using international best practice standards of how we measure unemployment. And the trend is apparent, it's clear, you cannot argue with it. 2010 to 2011 survey, it was 7.1%. Now it's down to 4.5%. There's been a significant and clear trend that has been shown. It's not a one-off figure. It's something there's a clear trend over a period of, 7 years, from 2010 to 2017. So there's been a clear trend. When you look at stats, you don't only look at levels. You look at trends. Trends tell us what is happening in a country.
Mr. Singh?
Well, those are the figures that we have. I mean, that's the figures that you got to go by. What I'm saying is that we've got to be cautious in the sense that we know on whether that is really reflecting the reality on the ground and the kind of jobs we're getting. Are those jobs, well-paying jobs? Are they decent-paying jobs? Are they quality jobs? Are those jobs part-time, full-time? I mean, that is not what we see from the figures. Those figures don't tell us that. Just as the $20,000 registrations with the FMPF don't tell us that. Right? Yes.
Mr. Usamate?
Well, obviously, I believe that as we have a better educated workforce, there's more likelihood there'll be more value-added jobs, jobs that give a greater payback. We have those unemployment figures on their own. I said the trend is clear. As usual, all countries want to move out of where a situation where you have a lot of jobs that are not giving high wages to move to jobs that are earning more high wages. But that is something that we will continue to progress towards into the future.
Straight talk, and we have in studio Minister for Employment and FijiFirst candidate Mr. Jone Usamate and Mr. Attar Singh, NFP candidate. Now, going on to civil servants' contracts, this has been an issue which a lot of parties are talking about in relation to civil servants' contracts. Mr. Usamate, why have the civil servants' contracts?
Well, I think the whole idea. I mean, I was asked this issue at one of the meetings, and I told them, the whole purpose of civil service is to be able to serve the public better. That's the ultimate. That's what civil servants are there for. There are lots of civil servants who do a very good job. I know lots of them. I met a lot of them in my tenure as Minister for Labour, as Minister for Health, and here in my current ministry as Minister of Employment. But we still have, people make fun about the civil service. But I always tell them, you don't see the full civil. There are some examples of poor civil service. That needs to be improved. Because civil servants have to be able to provide the service to the people that to the people that we serve. Contracts are one way to make sure. It is a very good way of making sure that people keep on their toes. It's a way of ensuring that we have good performance management to ensure that the civil service can provide the kind of service that people need. In the past, we used to have tenured employment. Sometimes people could stay in a job if they were performing or not. Things just moved on. Now they just kept floating until the end of their time. That is something that government does not want to see. We want to make sure that the civil service is lean, it's efficient, it's effective, and it is able to provide the kind of service that the people of this country expect, because it is the people that are funding the civil service in the first place anyway, and funding all of us politicians that end up becoming ministers.
Mr. Attar Singh?
I mean, I think every taxpayer, all citizens want the civil servants to be efficient. They want them to be good. They want them to be skilled and qualified, and to be able to do the job properly. The contract system, it believes, the belief is that if you put them on a leash, they'll do a job properly, and then they can be tested and they can be annually appraised on performance, and that they will do a better job because they'll fear losing the job. It is a system of trying to instill fear that if you didn't do a good job, you lose your job. We all want good motivated workforce. With the same results can be achieved by motivation, by having staff who have a good morale, rather than living in fear. And we believe that can be achieved that way better. The past that Mr. Minister is talking about in terms of performance, non-performing people remaining in the job. I mean, the responsibility for making sure that people's performance is appraised on an annual basis, which has always been the system of method of measuring performance. It's for the bosses, it's for the department heads, for the different ministries and ministers to make sure that is done on time. Let me tell you, even now, even under the contract system, performances are not being appraised on time. They have a requirement for performance to be appraised on an annual basis, but very few ministries are able to meet those deadlines. I mean, I have.
I don't know if that's true.
Yes. I have been. For example, I have.
Because I only know about my ministry has been done.
Yes, right. I know. For example, teachers. The teachers were told that they were required to do the assessment by end of April.
Yeah, but that was because the moderation was weak. Moderation.
They were asked to do they were required to do the assessment by 30th April. They were due for increment by 1st of August. That still hasn't happened.
Because of the moderation.
For whatever reason, it hasn't happened, right? That's not happened. I know Firka, for example. In Firka, people are being given 1 month monthly contract only because their performance hasn't been appraised on time. 1 year contract supposed to have been appraised and contract renewed. They were extended by 3 months. Still could not be done with 3 months. Extended by another 3 months. Still could not be done. And now people are being given one monthly contract. And for that, this is evidence of Firka.
What is that?
Firka.
During the break, we will get Mr. Usamate to read that, and we'll be right back here on Straight Talk. We'll be back after this break.
All right. What was this? A letter?
Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan, brought to you by Extra Supermarket, continues after the break.
Vambe maina singavo Tangi mureli wa mai Seni kau era serakatu Divini ke rai 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 Seni de unga lili nachiale Seni via via sisi au mate Doriva ki me nongu salu salu Viri awa nongu bakana nanu Seni kau tama meka Lama kali mama na leba Seni rosi buana metau Tangi mau dia niulingalau
En die bekken nieuw senga tunira. En die bekken nieuw duin mai week hemoni. En die bekken nieuw baby, kau wakalolong. En die bekken nieuw kilai, nieuw loki. Ia mai na huni utoku todo kumai long. Au wakila tu na nomuni mama rau. Me wakana rei seni kau ndui roka, rei te toka. Kare uku kutele tuna, ni nogumbula.
Isa nanongu banua bula Seni kauna kena beibuda Mako soi kena yanu Naseni teteva votu e matagu Singalevu era seraka Duiroka era ruitotoka
Welcome back. You're listening to Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan, brought to you by Extra Supermarket.
In studio tonight on Straight Talk, we have FijiFirst candidate Mr. Jone Usamate and NFP candidate Attar Singh. Now, during the break, Mr. Usamate has seen the letter that has been provided by Mr. Attar Singh on contracts for revenue and customs. Mr. Usamate.
Yeah, well, when you begin a new system, a system of managing performance, you expect some time to be able to fine-tune the system. Now, under the old system that you used to have for, what do you call them, the upper system, this one problem that you also always have in the system is that when people do their assessments, everybody tends to be Superman or Superman. And that's one of the problems that you have. People are not rated. We normally in any organization setting, you should have a normal distribution of what people are able to achieve. You can't everybody Superman, especially if the output of that particular unit is not saying that it's achieving its targets. Now, this is one of the problems that we have. So there's always a need for moderation. That is one of the issues that came about in the teachers' issue that Attar was talking about there, about their having to delay because they had to carry out the moderation to make sure the way that the assessments was being done showed that it needed to be improved. That was the same issue that happened in my particular ministry. So as you go through these things of making sure that people know how to assess properly, there will be a need to be able to extend contracts by a month or 3 months or so until you can get the system fully running. And we should be able to expect that sort of a thing from happening. I think that's what happened in that particular case. But the government intent is clear. For a lot of for teachers, for instance, if people are able to show that they meet the requirements for their job, for the Ministry of Education, they will be given 5-year contracts. And sometimes like this, as we're getting into starting to this system, people might have a 1-year contract, but once it's fully running, once it's in full swing, we will have those long-term contracts. If people are showing that they're able to perform at their jobs, they will automatically get a good contract until the kings can be kicked out of the system.
Mr. Usamate, people are listening on Viti FM and also watching on Facebook on Fiji Village. What do you have to tell the people, as you said, that if they perform well, if they're a civil servant, if they have a 5-year contract, it will continue to get renewed? It's not like their jobs will be lost if they continue performing?
That's the basis. That's the basis of it. If you have a contract, you know what your targets are. If you're performing, you're meeting all the requirements, then you will be given the job again. You should be able to get a new contract given to you.
Mr. Singh?
Well, we know that that's not exactly what's happening. For example, in the teachers, in the teaching fraternity, after the job evaluation, you know what happened? People
But the job
were
changed.
people were no
job changed.
no the job did not change. I mean, if you're a principal of a school, you're principal of a school. If you're vice principal, that's what you are. The job hasn't changed. Maybe the content of the job has changed, has increased,
what they had to
right?
do
But the job
changed.
is still the same, and it
increased by
is
15%.
that job. The job they were doing was the one that was evaluated. Right? And upon evaluation, because the increase was beyond, those who had increased beyond 15%, were told, well, you are now being demoted by one level, appointed acting, and then they had to apply for their own jobs. I mean, where in the world do you go and apply for your own jobs? You've held
But
a
in
job,
this case,
you've
the
held a
job
job for a while.
requirement increased by
Okay, let him
You've held a
explain.
job for a while.
Let Mr. Usamate
No,
explain.
they've held a job.
Excuse me, you have made a claim. Let him explain, then we'll move on to your next
When the
issue.
job evaluation is done, when you do a job evaluation, you have all kinds of requirements that you look at, the competency.
Of
the
course,
jobs needed.
yes.
So obviously, if they were doing a job before, and the requirement for this job that they're now doing is 15% more, obviously the competencies required to do this new job are different from the one that they were doing before. And you have to find the best possible person to do the job that is now being advertised. I understand that the head's position for the various schools, whether it's at whether it's primary school or the secondary school, the requirements for those positions have been changed as a result of this job evaluation in the restructure that they're doing. So that means if you want to make sure that you're getting the best person for the job, you have to advertise it. Because it's not always true that the person sitting in the job right now is the one who will be able to do the job best. And it's we have, as a government, have to make sure that if you want to deliver good performance, you make sure the right people are in that job. So if the job has changed, you need to advertise it, especially if it's more than a 15% change, to get the right person in the job. Because this is a central principle of government. Get the right people in the job and you will get the good outcome. Some people got into their job. You know how people used to, how if you used to mix grog for the district education officer, he might promote you. Or you give him some chicken or something. This doesn't happen all the time. No, I'm saying it doesn't happen all the time. Obviously, there are a lot of good teachers out there who got promoted in the way they should. But there were also a lot of people who did some funny kinds of things to get promoted. You know how it was. If you stand and complain too much, sometimes you might be transferred out of the district. But it's these kind of things that you want to get rid of.
Job evaluation, Minister, is evaluating the job you're doing.
Yes.
Right, based on your position description, based on your JD. That's what's happened. It was that job evaluation. The evaluation result what it meant was that if you were doing a job, this is what your job is now worth. It should be paid this much for the job. What the government did was it made the incumbents lose their jobs because they advertised the jobs, and many of them who applied, they didn't get the jobs only because those jobs were re-advertised. Now that is unfair, it's unjust. You're removing incumbents from those jobs. Those jobs haven't changed. The job worth has changed. Job worth has changed. That's what's happened. Job worth has changed, and so many of the people, and we hear from the teachers, about 2,000 people, lost out on the evaluation process. Now. So that is unacceptable. And similar problem happened in the civil service elsewhere. So our position is that we believe that you can get the people motivated, you can get the right morale in the workforce. And for doing all that, you don't need to keep them on a leash like a contract. You give them permanent contract. We believe the permanent contracts, employment contracts, 10-year employments give people greater morale and more motivated to keep their jobs. And performance systems can be in place to measure performance.
Mr. Attar Singh, Mr. Usamate has said that one of the issues is that the job requirements changed, and that is the reason why everything got reassessed. Will you do the same? Will you assess the job requirements based on present day?
Sorry, we're not saying we're going to do that.
The feedback that I have, I think for a lot of the job, for the teachers that you're talking about, the education, talking to them, they tell me that the requirements for the heads have changed, what they're supposed to do. Some of the things that the old heads used to do, or some of the things that the positions that require them now, are not the things that the old heads were doing before. So there's some new requirements. If there's some new requirements, then obviously the kind of person that you need to fill that position is going to change. If it's an expanded role for the people that are heading these schools,
I haven't heard that.
Well, this is the
I haven't heard
understanding that I have.
That's not
and
an
that's the
issue
gist
coming
of
out.
that's the gist of my argument.
Yeah.
If the job has changed,
Yeah,
you
but
have
that's
to
not
get
what's
the
happened.
right
Why I'm
person.
saying that that's not what's happened.
Because
That is not what's
it's
come
not
out of the.
absolutely true
That hasn't
the
come out of the
person
current public
that is
discussion
in
on
the
this.
current job is the one that can do the requirements of the new job as it's being put together.
Well, there's public discussion right here on Straight Talk now on this issue. So, will NFP look at the job requirements, for example, for heads of schools and other senior civil servants, knowing that we are now in 2018, and if the requirements were set way back, definitely you'll have to make a reassessment. Will you also look at that?
Well, there's a whole host of things that NFP is saying that needs to be done regarding education system, right? I mean, the NFP is wanting education commission to come in. Obviously, that will look at the curriculum, and therefore, from that will come the requirements for teaching and the kind of teachers we need to have. So all that will be the start of the whole thing, and that's what we want to do. It will start from a education commission.
So you will also look at the requirements for different positions for the civil service?
The requirements for the positions for different professions will come down after the education commission.
What happens if some of the civil servants who are currently in those positions do not meet the requirements?
Normally, what you do is those who don't meet the requirements of a new job, you retrain, you provide them training opportunities. You retrain them. That's what needs to be done. You don't remove them from the job, right? You give them training opportunities, or you move them to equivalent jobs. That's the right thing to do.
Mr. Usamate, is the current government removing the people from their jobs? Or
Normally,
what is the...
If necessary, you need to do that because you need to manage performance. But you're managing performance in somebody doing his job that he's doing at the moment, then you can do all of those things. But if it's a job that has different requirements, then it's probably better to get a new person to it, because if the job has a completely new requirement. But the focus always of government, this government has been, because in the past we know how we put people into some jobs. Some people were put into jobs because they used to mix grog for the boss. That kind of thing we want to get rid of. Some people got into jobs because they came from the same school. And all of these sorts of issues we want to clear up. We want to make sure that
that's still happening.
Strong performance. Well, if it is happening, then it's something that the government wants to make sure that to stop, because we need the civil service to be, the governance to be strong, to make sure that they do things as the way that they're supposed to do. So, in terms of civil service contracts and all of these things, we'll continue to be able to focus on making sure the civil service is effective as possible. We believe that contracts are not something that has just started recently. I've been in a contract for more than 20 years. And I know how that has affected the performance of the staff that I've managed. I've been a CEO. We've had contracts, we had performance management systems, and I have been CEO of an organization that used to have these tenure positions that Mr. Singh is talking about, moving into contracts. I've led an organization that went through the transition, and through the performance management system, through the contract system, we were able to double, triple our performance through our contract system and our strong performance management. Mr. Singh was one of our board members at that time, if I remember correctly, as we moved into the TPF, into all of these contracts. So I've seen it actually work, leading to real positive outcome for the organization that I led at that particular time. And that is what we want to do into the services, to make it a leaner, more effective civil service.
So it worked for TPF?
It worked for us at that time, yes.
You were the board member, did it work?
No, I can't recall contracts being in place in TPEP in 2006.
We were all there in contract by the time. We were moving into contracts.
Yes, I mean the upper levels were on contracts.
All the way down.
I can't recall the lower level.
You were the board member there?
No, we weren't informed of that.
No,
I could have been on the engineering training board.
Council. We used to have the council and the boards.
Yes.
Yeah, so he was in one of the boards. But I've gone through the exercise. I've been part of a tenured arrangement and part of the transition to the contractual arrangement and to the full contract. And I've seen the improvement in the performance as we get everybody on board into not just contract, but the performance management system, teaching people how to assess, how to establish the targets people have the monitoring, the informal monitoring, and then having some reward systems to attach with it. It leads to positive outcome, positive growth. I've actually been in that transition myself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Usamate. Now going on to NFP, your question about merit-based recruitment system. That is currently underway according to the government. Will you continue with that?
Well, employment always has to be merit-based. I mean, everybody has to be employed based on merit. I mean, the best person must make the job. So employment has to be merit-based. The difficulty that the workers are complaining about is that in this open merit, it's not just merit, it's open merit-based system where internal applicants are disadvantaged because the job is advertised, on an open market.
You won't do that?
We believe that every person who starts a job, it starts in a workplace. They expect to be able to progress within the organization or within the system, and that is the expectation. If that's the expectation, an open merit system undermines that expectation.
Just for the benefit of listeners and viewers, again, I ask you the question. So you believe the civil service vacancy should not be advertised externally? Are you saying that?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that
because
that
preference
within
the civil service,
yes,
you saying because people have gone into the civil service,
yes.
and by the way, we're talking about the civil service
yes,
here.
yeah.
You said that it is being advertised externally as well. You believe it shouldn't be done?
No, there's a difference between merit-based and open merit. Open merit-based.
I'm talking about open merit.
Yeah, open merit. What open merit does is it disadvantages internal applicants from getting a job. What we expect the civil service to be able to do, or any other employer to be able to do, that if there are internal applicants, they should be if they are not qualified for the job, you upskill them, you retrain them, so that they meet the requirements for the job, so that the person's legitimate expectation of being able to progress within the organization is achieved. That's what we're doing.
Mr. Usamate.
Well, in my ministry, as minister, the permanent secretary has the right for appointment. So she has all the processes. And I have this, what do I do? I endorse. I go through the processes. I can tell you that out of all the positions that we advertise, the top level positions, more than 90% are people from the inside. So even though it's open merit, I mean, they're familiar with the systems, they're familiar with how it operates, they're familiar with the laws, they're familiar with how to interact with people in the government. So they always have a distinct advantage. For somebody to come from outside and to take those positions, that person must really have something that the ministry needs or the government apparatus needs to be able to deliver good service. Vast majority of positions are given to people from within the service. At least that's my ministry. We try to make sure, we try to bend the other way, to make it as fair as possible for people coming from the outside, to give them an equal, a better opportunity, a better crack at the jobs. Vast majority, 90%, I think, at least 90% or more than 90% are people from within the ministry getting the jobs.
You will continue with the open merit recruitment system?
Definitely, because as I said before, when you are in the civil service, you are there to deliver service to the people. People deserve the best. And you should not limit the way that you recruit from those already in the service. The ones that do a good job, they will get those top positions. They will merit it because they perform, they have the competence, they're able to deliver the kind of results. They will get those positions. But the people we serve, they deserve the best. So we should open it up to make sure that they get the best.
Mr. Singh?
No, I'm not saying that you don't recruit people from outside. What we're saying is that the person's ability to be able to progress within the organization, within the department, should also be a factor, should also be a consideration in appointing people to jobs. What's happened is when you bring in people on contract employments, that opens itself up more to external employment and denying people internally of progression. So that these things are linked. The one doesn't stand on its own. They are linked. So those are things that we need to bring in a fair system so that we can look after our employees better. Right? And it's investment. Our employees are investment. I mean, they're training, the work they do, what they learn on the job is all investment. They all learn. And they're upgrading on a daily basis. So we need to keep those people. We don't just kick them out and leave them on the road. I'm not saying that's happening every day. I'm saying as a principle that those things can happen.
You see, in the performance management system, I sit with my permanent secretary. We try to sit on a quarterly basis. We review her targets, what she's been able to achieve. We also sit and identify areas where there's an opportunity for improvement, and we discuss too the kinds of things that she has to do in order to be able to make an improvement in that area, and things that I can do to help her achieve the standard that is required. She then does the same for the next level. They do the same for the next level. So it's inbuilt into this reform of open merit recruitment system, a performance management system whose intent is to improve performance. Improved performance means counseling, mentoring, training, giving advice, giving different kinds of work experiences to people so they can enhance their competence and they can deliver. So the opportunity for improvement is built in
to the open merit, not just the merit open merit, recruitment system, but also into the performance management system itself, which is a key part of this reform.
Mr. Singh, we need clarity on this issue because you've said look in-house first, internally, and if you can't get people, then you go outside.
Absolutely.
And if somebody is inside the civil service who may not be ready, you say retrain them?
The person should be given upskill and retrain.
What about the people who are out of the civil service may want to apply and get into the civil service? What do you have to say to them?
Of course, that they can apply and get in the system. If they like the minister says, I mean, they'll have to be real super skilled people to be able to get in the system. Because generally, everywhere, people who are within the system, they generally have they should generally have, and they generally have a better progression ability.
And don't they have the system working right now? The same system that what you were suggesting?
Well, very similar to what it is. What I'm saying is that if you link it to contracts, then contracts become terminable after a period. And it's when that is the risk that the people carry on a contract-based employment. That's what we're saying, that the contract-based employment has to go. We're going to remove it, and we're going to maintain the performance appraisal system, because performance appraisal is needed to see whether a person can only keep a job based on performance. I mean, that's the law. That's international law. Your job is continuity of job is based on performance. So performance has to be measured on a regular basis, and it must be done efficiently.
In studio tonight on Straight Talk, we have NFP candidate Mr. Attar Singh and FijiFirst candidate and Minister for Employment, Mr. Jone Usamate. Mr. Usamate, civil servant salaries and increases. What can you tell the people? Because some parties are saying civil servants are not getting enough increments have not been given. What can you say about that?
I think civil service plays a very critical role, and you will have to get the best people to be in the civil service. If not, they'll not be able to deliver the kind of things that you want from them. As part of this, I think all the things that are happening in the civil service, Ministry of Civil Service, all the changes that they're doing, all civil servants have received an increase in salary from 4% to up as a result of the job relation and other changes. But in some areas, the increases in pay have been quite substantial. I've got some here. For senior surveyors, for instance, the increase has been around 77.5%. For town planners, about 89.9%. And for veterinarians, vets, the people who look after animal doctors, almost 102%. So in some certain categories, the changes have been quite substantial. But all civil servants in general have received that enhancement of pay. I think overall government we value civil servants. They need to perform well, and government is willing to increase their pay. A few years ago, remember a few years ago that we enhanced the pay for doctors? Because this is one group of people that's very hard to keep tabs on. Once they receive their training, they become specialists. They're very easy for them to go offshore, and for them to, they can get much higher pays. I think they can double their pay. So by enhancing their pays in this way, we hope to be able to retain them, and at the same time, people can aspire to those kinds of positions. I noticed from this data that principals of large schools, some of them have increased their pay by 102%. Salaries have gone really up. Head teachers of large schools has gone up. Salary has gone up by about 25,000, increase of about 64%. So there have been some quite massive increases from some civil servants' pay. This is something that government has done in order to enhance the civil service.
Civil service salaries?
The civil service salaries that Minister is talking about, those were out of job evaluation. Job evaluation, what it does, it values the job, ranks the job, and compares the salary of equivalent ranked jobs in outside the market. Right? That's what it does, and then pegs a salary for them. That's what it does. That's what's happened. So based on what the job was worth, whatever the job was worth, they have been given equivalent pay levels. That's what's happened. The areas of jobs that Minister is talking about that have got 100% or 75%, 77% pay increases. I mean, surveyors. We don't have surveyors in the country.
Yep.
We don't have any surveyors. So that is why it's a scarce skill. We want to retain that skill of people. We want to retain our doctors. So of course you need to pay higher for those people, because if you don't pay the local ones higher, then you've got to get them from overseas and pay high salaries. That is the difficulty. So we can't talk about those levels. The teachers talking about getting a $100,000 salary, that is absolutely incorrect. The highest teacher of largest school salary, I understand, ranges from somewhere between $65,000, $67,000 to $87,000 max. The salary level above that, see, they only go up to first, second, third, fourth step, right? Large, and that's a large secondary school. And how many large secondary schools we have? I think 10 or 12 in the country. So we're talking about 12 people in the country amongst the profession of over 12,000 teachers. So 12 people would be heading those large schools would be getting anything between 67 to 87,000, depending on the service and the incremental level where they were. The increase from 87 or 85,000 onwards, the maximum of step 4, further up, there is no increase. It is only meant for star performers, and you'd get.
But what's the maximum?
I think 100,000. That's what it goes.
So
Yes,
that
yes.
is the
So
possibility.
talking about 100,000, I mean, you're talking about 12 people out of 12,000 or teachers. It's not as if that's the salary level. I mean, you can't. Don't make people believe this is what we're gonna get. No, this is only 12 people. These
They
are
can
very
aspire to
very one or two jobs. No. Right?
So what will you do?
let's be fair.
Your question
let's
was
be fair.
Your question was, what will you do regarding civil servant salaries?
We have said that we will review the current structure that is coming. We want to make sure that people don't lose jobs. We want to make sure that people who in a job have the opportunity to progress fairly and move on to jobs that they aspire to, and that the salary system has to be fair. We remember also that in 2015 and 2016, the public sector unions also filed a log of claim asking for 15% pay rise.
What will you do, Mr. C, going forward? What will you do?
We will review what has happened.
What will you give, for example, these larger schools, the teachers, the head teachers, principals?
No, we can't just say what we're saying is we are going to
you
review the
saying
process.
65,000 to 87,000 is not enough. So what will you
I'm
do?
not saying that it's not enough. What I'm saying is that to make people believe that teachers are getting up to $100,000 salary is not correct.
It's possible.
That's what I'm saying.
Possible.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that 65 that we're not going to 65 or 85. We're saying that you don't say that some people got 77% increase, some got 80% increase. I mean, there's a reason for that. When you say those things, you got to explain why they got it. They got it because of scarce skills. The people in the teachers, the surveyors, and this, they got it because of scarce skills. Doctors got it because of scarce skills. These skills are in short supply. That's why they're getting it. I mean, that's the truth of it, right? But the
But
teachers.
a scarce skill. When you feel a scarce skill, the focus on the scarce skill, make sure that you can deliver a better service to the people. That's the focus of it.
Well, of course, it's about service delivery, but you got to have the right number of people. We got short supply of surveyors, we got short supply of doctors, and because unless we pay them well, they'll pack up and leave and go somewhere else. So obviously, we need to pay them well, right?
Gentlemen, I'm sure the listeners and viewers want to know what the NFP has in store for civil servant salaries. Can you tell them?
We are saying that the current evaluation process that was implemented, we want to first review the whole process together with all the unions and involvement, and then move forward from there. The unions, workers are complaining that there hasn't been fair consultation. Of course, the government will say that there has been collective bargaining, there has been consultation. Unions are saying there hasn't been. What their argument has been that every time they were called in, they were called and told what the government was doing, rather than taking the views of the unions and the worker representatives in. So that is the whole process has to be reviewed before moving on in
So
terms
people
of
have to wait for the review and then they will find out what is in store for the civil servants.
Yeah, we're not promising any pay rise for civil servants. There's nothing.
I'm just asking you the question.
No.
Performance-based system, what do you
I
have
think
in
it's
store?
just
Performance-based system
one of the
has to
points
be-
that Mr. Singh was mentioning, that they asked for 15%.
Yes.
Yeah, it's important to know they asked for 15%. What government has done has gone increases of up to 100%.
But this is nonsensical. This is the point I just made. I just made
not
that.
across the board.
Yeah.
In some places, a lot of
Yes.
cases,
Very few
60%,
people.
50%, 40%. A lot of
Very
people,
few people,
A lot of people
Minister.
would have got 20%.
There are very few
30%,
Do you have
people.
proof
40%.
there?
Do you have any
Can show
numbers?
it to
Well,
Mr. C?
I'm just looking at some of the
I
figures here.
know
But
I
what
know
I'm
those
saying
charts.
is, the increases in some cases have been above that 15%, where it was warranted in order for government to have the right kind of people filling the jobs, so we can deliver a good
Maybe
service.
minister should tell us
Because
how many people got those
ultimately,
increases.
I don't have those numbers.
Yeah,
And
that's
I'm
right.
sure
This
the
is
civil
it. So
service-
that's an important issue.
But the point that I have is this: there are opportunities for people to go up to 100,000. Does not mean that nobody will ever get to 100,000. There will be super teachers who will be able to get to that level. They can aspire. So a person that had a salary of 39,000 as a head teacher now can have a salary of 65,000 or more, and that is more than a 64% increase. There is that opportunity. Increases have been put in place in the kinds of occupations where it is needed for the government to be able to deliver a better service. As I said right from the outset, civil service, you've got a lot of good civil servants. Civil service, its ultimate
intent is to be able to provide that service, and that is what this government is doing.
You got a performance-based system, Mr. Singh. Do you have a plan for civil servants? The
No,
performance-based system?
we believe in performance-based system. We believe that there has to be performance appraisal methodology in place to make sure that people who are given jobs, they do a good job, and you need that to be able to grant them annual.
What if they are
annual payments.
non-performers?
Non-performers, you stay in the grade that you are.
You don't
You
lose,
do-
you don't lose your
lose
job.
out. You lose out on your increments.
You don't lose your job.
No.
Mr. Usamate, performance-based management system, is it
Performance-based management system means that you try to focus. You know, everybody knows what level of performance they're supposed to perform at, and they know that if they can deliver at their service at that particular level of performance, they maintain their job. If they can't deliver at that level of performance, there's a likelihood that they might not keep in the job. But also, as part of the performance management system, to manage the performance, you have to assist them to improve their performance. That bit is built into the system. But ultimately, the job requirements change because everything changes. Technology changes, new learning comes in, and if people cannot keep up to speed and they cannot deliver, because remember, civil service job is to deliver. If people cannot deliver, then the jobs will be advertised and somebody will be brought in to be able to provide their job. So it's incumbent on the person also to keep them up to date. That's why you will see the government has put in 2.7 million for civil service training. There's opportunities now for them to do master's degrees, PhDs, and all of this training, so that they can keep on improving their own competence, so they can maintain the position that they have or improve.
So for non-performers, as far as FijiFirst is concerned, if you continue to non-perform, you are out.
For non-performance, the performance management system will try to make you improve, help you improve. But
If
if
people
you
still do
cannot
not
deliver
improve?
at that level, then we need to get somebody who can. But most people should be able to focus to keep on improving themselves.
Thank you very much. Do you have a bonus system for civil servants at the moment, Mr. Usamate?
I'm not aware if there's any financial incentives at the moment. I don't have the answer to
Is
that
there any
question.
consideration being given
I
for
can't
that?
say that. I think there might be something that I'll have to discuss with the Ministry of Civil Service.
Mr. Attar Singh?
I don't think there's a bonus system in place, but I think the bonus
No,
system.
I'm asking, will NFP do that?
Oh no, the salary and payment system has to be a system that has to be negotiated together with the workers and the representatives and then developed. We're not going to do it just as a government go and do a thing like that. So all we say
Will you
is
give it some consideration?
a bonus system.
Yes.
Bonus system.
As I told you earlier, these calls and text messages have come from people, so you're answering the questions of the people.
Bonus is given for very very good performance in the teaching profession. That example that I gave about the 12 high schools, top teachers.
Will you look at a bonus
there's
system,
a bonus
Mr.
system there. I think that's something that we can look at. We can talk about it, but it'll have to be discussed properly with the worker representatives.
Under the current system, if people work well, they move up in the salary
Yes.
scale. So there is that reward for,
Yes.
for performance. It's already there. It's built into the system.
Now, the concerns continue to be raised about short-term contracts, but I've got some messages earlier this week that these contracts started coming in and 75% of the civil servants had signed their contracts much earlier. And before, I think this last phase was another 25% of civil servants. Is that true? When did the contract signing take place, the new contracts for civil servants?
I'm not aware what.
Mr. Singh?
I know that in my ministry it's ongoing.
Yeah, as far as we know, the contract system of employment for all civil service was brought in by this government.
No. It started way before.
The previously the people who were on contract were the permanent secretaries and the higher level officers.
But
the
contracts
general
have been
workforce has not. I mean, depends what kind of contract you're talking about. I mean, everybody is on an unemployment contract.
So
We're
contracts have
talking
been in
about
existence before this.
He's talking about fixed term contracts which have got a fixed duration. Right? So that's what you call short term, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year contracts. They came in under this government's reign, and they have made everybody go on contract. What I think the Minister Ayaz Kayum is saying is 70% of people who were already in contract. They were on contract. They could have been they were brought in contract under the military government rule. And then when the new evaluation system came in, that's when the other 25% went on contract. What we're saying is that we want to get rid of contract system. Fixed term contract.
I've already mentioned, as a person that's worked as an executive,
I've seen how effective this contract system together with the performance management system can be in improving the performance of an organization. Government has put it in place. It is fair for the workers. Workers know that if they perform, they will get a new contract. A lot of us have worked on a contractual basis for decades. We still remain in the job. We moved up in life. It's not something that if you have a contract and you don't deliver, you're going to lose your job. No. If you deliver and if you're improving, nothing's going to be taken away from you. You have great opportunities to keep. It's not as if it's a big bogeyman. You're on contract, you're going to lose your job. If you deliver it all the time, you will maintain your job. But it keeps you on your toes. You don't get lethargic. You don't start slacking off.
It is that belief.
Yeah,
it is that belief.
That is what we do.
Yeah, it is that belief that Minister just
system,
mentioned.
The performance management system makes sure that happens. So contracts, the way that it is done, if you're delivering what you're supposed to do, you don't have to be afraid of losing your job. You don't have to be afraid. You will get the rewards that you need. But at the same time, through the performance management system, we make sure civil service is able to deliver what the people should have the right to expect from.
We are saying the same can be achieved by having tenured employment, full-time permanent employment, and a performance management system.
Mr.
Same can be
Usamate,
achieved.
you've been a minister and you've worked at TPF.
I worked at TPF.
Yeah.
I have been a person that worked when I was a tenured employee. I've managed people that had a tenured employee. I've been a CEO in an organization that had the transition from all tenured employees. Even though we had what we said were performance management systems, but it was always quite weak.
My question, Mr. Usamate, is that permanent contracts, if we go back,
Permanent
as far as
contracts. No,
the
that's tenured.
tenured contracts, if we go back to that for civil servants, would that bring about more efficiency, as Mr. Singh is saying?
I don't believe so, because I said, as I've worked in both systems and in transition, and I've seen the results of what happens when we have in the organization that I ran, we were able to enhance the productivity, not through the contracts, through the performance management system. You have to have a strong, very strong performance management system. Tied in together with the contract, we will be able to deliver the kind of results that you want. And at the same time, there's this notion that when you have contracts, your job is on the line. Your job is on the line only if you are not performing. Only if you are not performing. And the people of this country have the right to expect that civil servants will perform. If they are performing, they will have their jobs. Nothing's going to stop them from getting a new contract.
Moving on to retirement age, Mr. Singh, you are planning to increase the retirement age?
Absolutely. We have already stated, and we've been saying that for a while, that we want to take up the retirement age back to 60 years from 55.
FijiFirst policy?
At the moment, the retirement age is at 55, and we don't have any intent at the moment to change. Why we want to do that? Well, what I was talking about unemployment, our big challenge is youth unemployment. Unemployment for the overall population is 4.5%. For youth, it is around 18.1%. So we need to make sure that we can open up opportunities for them. If we move the retirement age up, that means that people that are in the civil service, they stay there for longer. And it denies an opportunity for youth from coming in and joining at the bottom. They do join at the bottom. So this is something that as a government we're looking to strengthen, providing opportunities for youth to join the workforce. When people are at the age of 55, they have a lot of expertise, they have a lot of knowledge, but at the same time, they can also apply that knowledge and expertise in a range of other areas. They have the FNPF to follow, to keep them going. But we believe that by keeping it at 55, we are providing the opportunities for youth, better opportunities for them to enter the job market, especially in the public sector.
Now, going on to trade unionists not allowed to contest the elections. Mr. Singh, a lot of comments has been made by trade unionists when the law came out. You had to resign as FIC2 General Secretary. What are the unionists planning? Because some unionists still continue to say they want to continue to be trade unionists and be politicians as well.
Well, as you know, I again had to resign my union positions to be able to contest this election. That's how I'm sitting here as a candidate. That we believe is a very, very unfair law. Everybody, trade unionists are workers' leaders. And they are the ones who voice workers' concerns. They should be able to take up workers' concerns up to the highest level of decision-making, which is the parliament. And that has always been the case in Fiji. Indeed, there is a case in anywhere else in the world. You look at Australia, New Zealand, and England. I mean, they have labour parties. The base of these parties are in the trade unions and the workers. So their people can contest elections, while holding office. We see no reason why we should be denied here. So that is a law that is very, very, very unfair, and we will see how that part of the law can be changed.
Mr. Usamate?
Well, we want to, for the government, basically the law is also about transparency and rule of governance. Obviously, when you're in a position as a trade unionist, you have an opportunity to, to get the influence of the trade union to go together with your political affiliation. And people, we believe that in that kind of office, people should be left alone to make their own judgments. And individuals in public offices should not use those positions. They have an opportunity to use those positions for their political leading, whereas members of the trade unions, they may belong to other political parties. So these things can become blurred. They can become blurred. Your role as a trade unionist, as a fighting for workers' rights, and then bringing that into politics. So it's just for the government, it's about keeping that all transparent, making sure that these things are not blurred. Because I'm not saying that it happens, it can lead to things that you might term as almost like corrupt practices when you don't. No, there's a possibility of that happening, yeah?
None of that happened in our country, Minister. We know that ever since 1972, our first parliament, we've always had trade unionists, in parliament. Last parliament was the only one where we didn't have any trade unionists, any union leader in parliament. Last one was the first one. It's because the military government made the law where it, for the first time, defined trade unionists as public officers. We are not public officers.
Public officers.
Trade unionists are not a public
officer.
officer.
They represent the interests of a whole range of people that are workers.
We are not public officers. We're not even paid by public funds. We're paid by our members'
You're paid
funds.
by members of the
members'
public.
funds, right?
Those are members of the public.
No, members of the public is if Vijay Narayan is going to pay me. No, it doesn't. We are registered organizations run by members' fees, and members' fees pay.
Yes.
And that's exactly how it happens.
And exactly
how it happens anywhere, everywhere else in the world. The reason why this government changed that law and made the restriction is because it knew exactly what you said earlier, that the unionists have influence, and that they didn't want that influence to be to undermine their
they would use their position to advance their own political agenda.
Own political agenda. It's the agenda of the workers.
No,
I mean, over here I'm talking about the workers' agenda.
That's an assumption that the agenda of a person is always the agenda of the whole workers. You're making
not
that
necessarily.
assumption.
I mean, a person is
the agenda of the workers might be different
if a
from the
person
agenda
gets
of that
elected,
one
person is
person.
in the job, the person carries the agenda of the job that he's held.
But sometimes he has his own things that he wants to do.
Those are
that might not
making,
be in keeping with what all the members want.
We haven't had
There
a case
is
like
that possibility. There is that possibility.
We haven't had a case
so
like
if
that.
you have a
and there is no
system
such
where you have
possibility.
rules like this, you make sure that
These
take you back
laws,
to the strike of
the
1999.
law has been unfair.
The
It
strike
has been
of
unfairly made
1999.
against the unionists.
Mr. Singh?
Remember the strike of
Mr. Usamate?
1999.
Which strike?
Strike of 1999.
What strike?
Airport strike by Fiji Public Service Association General Secretary,
Yes.
who was also leader of the Labour
Yes.
Party. They begin to do all of this. It could be tied up with their own political agenda. They start using the workers to help them in their political agenda. So when you do this sort of a rule to say that if you want to stand for election, you have to give up the leadership of the trade union, you're not going to drag the trade union to follow your own dream of becoming a
Nothing like that happened. Nothing like that. But
there is that opportunity. There is
allegation
that
making
possibility.
against the public service union leader at the 499, that's incorrect. I mean, it's incorrect. I can't understand how you're doing that. I mean, that's incorrect.
But I'm saying
that's allegation making against the former prime minister.
If you have these sorts of rules that we have now, you cannot.
Let's moving on to that issue of public office, because trade unionists have been termed as public officers. Do you see them as public officers?
No, not at all.
Why not?
We're not public service or public office holders. We are holding a private office in a non-public, non-government organization, which is a trade union.
Mr. Usamate, do you see them as public officers?
All the members of the trade unions are members of the public. Not the whole public, they're a portion of the public. They give up their money freely to the unions for their membership. So they are representing the interests of a segment of the public. They are public officers.
No.
Thank you very much. What is your assessment of work of trade unions in the country, Mr. Usamate?
Well, I've been a trade union myself, so I know that trade unions do a good job. I mean, they do a good job for everybody in the country. I mean, they can represent the interests of workers. Sometimes they go a bit overboard. Sometimes they don't do things that they're supposed to do. One of these things that I was talking about is tying up the politics at the trade unions, a trade union becoming a politician. Sometimes those roles get a bit blurred. But there is a important role for trade unions if they do what they're supposed to do, which is fight for the interests of workers to make sure that downtrodden get uplifted. That's a very important role to play.
Mr. Singh?
Well, I think what the minister said, that all that is correct. That's the role of trade unions. Unfortunately, under all laws, the role of the unions have not been able to fully carry out those roles because of the kind of legal restrictions, law restrictions, the kind of laws that are in place. And well, I mean, we can talk about a whole lot of that. We can talk about the essential national industries decree, for example, which is no longer in place. But the effects of the decree, the sections of the decree, the essence of the law has been embodied in the Amendment Act, right? We know that the essential service industries also has listed many other industries as essential, which should not be essential, right? There's still an argument, and you know that the ILO is supposed to come down to review that, and there's been 2 years on, there's been no review on that one, right? We also know that the right to strike,
stepped out of the
IRAB
was going to do that, and you decided to withdraw.
Well, right, 2 years on, right to strike,
You're abandoning the workers.
Right to strike. I'm not abandoning the workers. I've decided to champion their cause. At a higher level. The right to strike is civilly restricted, and therefore unions, collective bargaining ability is restricted.
Let's talk about right to strike. You're saying it's restricted?
No, yes, definitely restricted.
We are still receiving ballot notices, strike for notices, but at the same time, when we deal with a strike notice, there's a certain process that you have to go through. You have to make sure that you've exhausted all the social dialogue, not that you just jump to strike immediately. You have to make sure the two parties that are in conflict need to make sure that they've tried as best as possible to get to the dialogue. But we've had ballot notices struck. There's even one that was given the right to go and struck that they decided not to go and strike. So that's been happening.
Mr. Singh?
No, that's not my experience shows that
unions
who have
2016, Fiji Bank and Finance Sector Employees Union undertook a secret battle for strike on behalf of their members at Bank of Baroda. They obtained a mandate in favor of the strike action, but did not proceed with the strike.
Mr. Singh, what do you have to say to that?
Well, I mean, they didn't proceed on a strike because the issue would have been settled. That's why they didn't go on strike. That's a different issue. Many times you take a strike ballot, you might issue a strike notice, but not go on strike because the issue.
But that means workers in this country have a right to go on strike.
Oh yes,
no.
They have a right to go on strike. It's
protected
in the
Constitution. No,
the
right to strike is curtailed by various forms. One is in the law itself. If a union is disputing an issue, wants to go on strike, all the employer needs to do is to report a dispute, and the dispute gets
the right to strike is there. It is in the Constitution.
It disappears. The second thing is the process under minister's ministry, under which they're required to conduct the ballot, supervise the ballot. We have got many applications by public sector unions, the Transport Workers Union against the bus industry. Applications to conduct the ballot have been refused because the ministry or the Registrar of Trade Union decides that there has been sufficient dialogue.
Mr.
Now,
Usamate.
you can't keep talking to the same person to an organization if you're not getting results. Strike means if you're talking, if you negotiating, you reach deadlock, you can't move any further, that's the next option. The strike is the next option. But the ministry's interpretation is no, you got to keep talking. We're saying that we're going to change that.
The major reason why the strike ballot is not given is because there's not been enough dialogue.
No, that's not correct.
Because they have to. One of the underpinnings of all of this Employment Relations Act is that you must have social dialogue, to continue the dialogue, try as much as possible to get that.
Powers of supervising the ballot has been used as an attempt to deny workers the right to strike. That's what's happened, and that's what we're accusing this government of.
It's about making sure that we have the social dialogue. The two parties continue to dialogue as much as. But when that is exhausted, when it's sure that they cannot proceed any further, then we go to the next level. Because we don't want to go back to the era where we have strike after strike after strike.
We never had strike after strike after strike.
Well, we had lots of strikes in the past.
Never had that. You're talking about 70s.
We have had 60 strikes. We had 60 strikes in the period from 2003 to 2008. Imagine the kind of impact that has on investors who want to invest in the country and who are thinking about the economy of this country. Since we've had the Employment Relations Act, we've had only one illegal strike from 2008. Only one. Since then, we've not. Because of this focus on dialogue, focus on mediation. That I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When
What
you
I'm-
do
what I'm
that, we
saying
can
is-
see the benefits now. Economic growth is happening. We've got a healthy industrial relations climate. Employment
We don't
is
have
running.
in the
We
healthy
do have a
climate.
healthy industrial
You have a
climate.
climate that is the way it is because of suppression of rights.
No, it's
You
not
don't
suppression
right.
of rights.
We are
All the
saying
rights
that
are
workers
there.
must
It's
have
in
right, traders must have
all those
right to take
conventions
strike
that we
action,
signed
and
to,
and
all the
and if
conventions that
those
we
rights
signed,
are, if
they're
those
in the
rights,
Employment Relations Act, in the
not at all,
Constitution.
not at all. Your Employment Act is Relations Act is
Okay,
not working.
gentlemen.
It's not working.
Mr. Usamate first.
No.
Do workers in this country who are listening and watching have a right to go on strike?
They have
And
a right
what's
to
the
go on
process
strike.
that they have to follow?
They have a right to go on strike, but what one of the fundamentals of our Employment Relations Act is social dialogue. We must try to resolve issues by talking first. That's why we have issues like the what do you call it, LMCC committees.
What is
where
LMCC?
Labor Management Consultation Cooperation Committees, in companies to encourage them to talk about this, try to resolve. At the higher level, when the unions become involved, we want them to sit and talk. I've been in some, and we also have these mechanisms now that if you're in the essential industry and the mediation fails, they can also bring issues for me for compulsory conference. I get involved. And in some of these cases, we've been successful by constant dialogue. Strike should be it's a last resort. It's something that we don't want to see happen, but the law allows for it to take place if you follow through the processes.
Mr. Singh, based on what Mr.
The right
Mr.
to strike,
Usamate
the
said,
right to strike, it is in the law, but its application and ability to go on strike is totally curtailed.
how much time do you want then the worker should have a right to go on strike?
No, the right to strike is there is only a notice requirement in the essential services. 14 days notice requirement. We are talking about essential service in other industries where the ability to even conduct the strike ballot is restricted.
I'm
where
asking you the question,
registrar-
what do you want? What do you
we
want?
we want to change the law, firstly to make sure to remove the supervision ability, the supervisor's ability to refuse the conduct of a ballot. If a union wants to conduct a ballot, that right must be granted. Conducting a strike ballot is not as the same as going on strike. It's conducting the ballot. It's about obtaining the workers' mandate. Here, the Registrar of Trade Union has on several occasions refused to conduct the ballot and therefore denying the union from taking a mandate. Right? So this is how they've used this law or abused the law to try and deny the workers the right to go on strike. It's happened in the public service. It's happened in the Transport Workers Union with the bus industry, which I am fully aware of. Right? We want to change the law to make sure that if there is going to be supervision, we're going to consult the unions about this. If they agree with supervision to continue, then supervision will only be done provided it is nothing to do with it. You want to have a strike ballot conducted, you go supervise the ballot. That's fine. Going on strike is a different issue.
Mr. Usamate, you'll go with the same process you have at the moment?
We have the process is because there's a focus on trying to resolve issues through dialogue, talk.
I mean,
Not
you
not
can't-
to jump to strike immediately.
No
Not to
one
jump
has
to
done
strike
that, Mr.
immediately.
Minister,
So
you
all
know
the
that.
process around.
You know that.
The second thing about the strike ballot, having a good third party come in to look at the strike to make sure that it's fair and transparent, I think is a very important step that we have. Because I've been a trade union myself. I know the kinds of shenanigans that sometimes go around in this balloting and what people
Yeah, but
do.
you also know, Minister,
So it's
that
good to have a
you
third
also know
party
the
there to
unions
make
in the
sure that it
country,
works
the
well.
workers and unions in the country agreed. They accepted the supervision law. And the supervision law was never a problem. Until
But it's not
your
now.
ministry. Until the ministry came under your control and until we got this recent register of trade unions with the powers to supervise. It is for the first time that the strike ballot are actually being refused. Belting is being refused.
But why is it
because
being
the
refused?
conduct of the ballot. Because they say that like you say, you want the people to keep talking till the cows come home. But this is not going to happen. I mean,
we want to
you
exhaust
need
the avenues to
exhausting, of
resolve
course.
it in other ways before resorting to this strike.
No.
That's the focus.
See, this is what they're doing.
But you
right?
see, there has been times when they had the strike, when they did the strike ballot, they got the mandate. So there's been proof from the past that it has been allowed to happen to
That's
progress.
2016.
Thank you
2016,
very
yeah.
much. Moving on to the next issue regarding minimum wage rate, and we have the 10 wages councils. Now, NFP has said that it will bring in a minimum wage of $5 an hour. Currently, there's a national minimum wage of $2.68. And of course, you have the 10 wages councils. Mr. Usamate, is that working well at the moment for government? And I believe that according to the Minister for Economy, he said that another review is underway and they are expected to do a comprehensive study on that. What can you say, because you're also the Minister responsible for employment?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to remember that with this government, in fact, it was the Bainimarama government that put in the first national minimum wage. Before that, we didn't have anything that protected the workers at the lower end of the scale from exploitation. So we've had three minimum wages now. We had the 2014 at $2. We've had the review in 2015 to $2.32 and to $2.68. And remember, this is a national minimum wage for unskilled workers. When we announced the budget for the 2018-19 period, the Minister for Economy had informed the nation that we will do a review. There will be a review not just of the national minimum wage, but also of the wage regulation orders. These are the wages in the 10 different sectors that cover the wages in 10 different sectors. But in looking at this, we have to look at it holistically and the impact of any change. What is the impact on the country as a whole? So we've already made that commitment. The government has already made that commitment to review it, and the review will be done.
Mr. Singh, you going ahead with $5 minimum wage. You also a unionist. You know that there's 10 wages councils. What will be the plan for that as well?
As you know, most of the wages councils, the rates in the wages councils orders are below $5. The Minister for Economy has been talking about electricians and plumbers or certain people being paid $11, $12. Those are paid. They are people who are in scarce jobs with
based on demand at the moment.
Based on demand, right? But the actual job pay rates are below $5. I think I can safely say in all the wages council orders, right? And the minimum wages order is $2.68 for unskilled workers. We are saying that we want to bring in a living wage of $5 for both unskilled and skilled workers.
So you'll have unskilled, you'll have unskilled at $5 an hour. You'll also have skilled at $5 an hour.
All workers. That we want that to be the bottom, the floor, the wage floor to be at $5 an hour.
Will you be reviewing afterwards the different wages councils?
Yes. We will review the wages council. We need to review the wages councils, because wages councils, what has happened is the wages councils has been operating, it is supposed to have been a tripartite body, tripartite organization representing workers, employers and government independent nominees. Unfortunately, in recent years, the wages councils haven't met, they haven't operated, and the government has started issuing orders and wage levels on its own. And this is one of the reasons why the trade unions walked out of IREB, and we've complained about this in IREB to the government.
IREB is Employment Relations Advisory Board
yes,
for listeners.
Yes, and we have complained about this, but no change has happened. There's not only that, the government has gone ahead and made some changes in the actual orders without any consultations.
Sure.
For example, the public holiday pay. Right? There's been no discussion. And we've complained about this at the IREB level. There have been at least 3 or 4 different meetings where this complaint has been made and no action has been taken.
About what?
About the changes to the wages orders without the government wages, without the wages councils actually meeting.
Public holiday pay is still paid?
No, you have changed the public holiday pay. In many places was triple pay. In many cases was triple pay. Public holiday pay plus working, if you work in public holiday, double pay. It was used to be triple pay. When the orders were changed, it was changed to double pay only. So that has happened.
I'm not too sure
Yeah,
about
right?
that.
So, and now the wages councils have been dormant. They are not functioning at all. And the government is going to start deciding on actual wage rates on its own.
Is public holiday pay changed, Mr. Usamate?
I can't remember what it was before, but just remember, the methodology that is now being used is to make sure that when you come up with the wage rates, you look at the impact of what you're going to do on the whole economy. The wage rates that we did in 2014, 2015 have been based on surveys. We do surveys, you find the data. In the past, what used to happen in this wage council, it'll be a lot of people just arguing over their points. The employers will be arguing about their point, keep it low. The union will be pushing for exorbitant rates. It's not based on any factual data gathering process. It was this thing about people pushing their both agendas. In the methodology that we're applying now, we do surveys of all the workers. We do surveys, random surveys. I think the last surveys that we did, we looked at around 10,000 workers, the ones earlier on. So it's based on some factual data. And when we look at this national minimum wage that we have,
the minimum wage that is being suggested here to go up to $5, we really have to think about the implications of that. Think about the implications of that. I think the TCF sector had come out and said, if we raise this for this particular sector,
They're funding your party.
no, hang on. That's an accusation. But think about it. They compete with countries that pay their workers 50 cents an hour, almost 50 or less than $1 an hour. Vietnam, Cambodia, and they're trying to put products into markets into Australia, where here we're paying $2.68 and their competition is paying $1 an hour. If we move up to $5 an hour, the competition is still paying the $1 per hour. What's going to happen to the opportunity, the possibility of our products getting into those markets? There's a distinct possibility of job losses, and there's a distinct possibility of wage inflation. Unskilled person gets his wage up to $5. The skilled person was getting $5 before. He says, well, if he can double his wage, I'm going to double my wage. And all of this, it just percolates through the whole system. You can have a huge system of wage inflation, which then passes on to the cost of goods being sold by all of these companies. That gets passed on to the consumer. There's inflation, there's all kinds of things. So, and we are looking at the level, the rate at which we set wages. We have to take all of this into account. And remember, national minimum wage is for unskilled workers, people that have no skills at all, at the bottom level. So, in looking at the national minimum wage, government looks at all of these factors. When you also have to take into account the impact of social wages. When we did this last survey for the national minimum wage in 2016, the consultant that we use, can't remember his name, from USP, he found that when he interviewed the workers were saying that the impact of the social wage, by the social wage I mean all the assistance that we give, subsidized electricity, subsidized water, things for the education, all of these things, had an impact in working poverty declined. It dropped it by 70% in the impact of social wages. So the impact of people's ability to cope with the rising cost of living is not only reflected in the national minimum wage, it's also reflected in all of these other benefits that government provides to cushion the impact. You know, now our take-home pay, taxation rates have dropped, VAT has dropped. That all has an impact on people's ability to cope with daily living.
Mr. Singh?
You see, the TCF owners, the TCF bosses are the only ones who complain, the ones who complain first and complain most loudly. And we have also gone and met the TCF owners. I mean, and I've told them very clearly, as Mr. Mark Halaby and others were there, and I said they know that there are sectors of the economy who have been given special attention. Our government industry has been given special attention ever since the Nair inquiry days, right? Ever since the Raman Nair inquiry days, right? In the 80s when the government industry was being set up. Now, at that time, the wage level for the government industry was set, and even after government industry wages council coming into place, the levels have moved on by very, very slowly. Very, very slowly. The rates at the moment are around 250 to 260 an hour in the government industry. These people, the industry itself has gone down from 18,000 jobs to 77,000 because they are now producing not low-end products, they are producing high-end products. What they make there is sold for $100, $200 in the foreign markets. Right? So what we're saying is that these people can't survive on less than $3 an hour. I mean, these, if we didn't have second-hand dealers, second-hand clothes, many of our people will have difficulty getting clothes. Right? They buy second-hand clothing, they buy cheap food, they have hardly protein in their food, and they live largely in squatter colonies. Now, that is not the kind of life that we want to have our citizens to have. What we're saying is that we need to provide decent housing, we need to provide them decent wages so they can have a decent job. You can't expect a person to feed a family, decently, and healthy food on 3 meals a table, 3 meals a day, if they are on $3.50 an hour wage. That can't happen. We are saying $5 living wage because our government's own poverty bureau stat says that the poverty line, BNPL, is at $220 a week. 220 a week is, for 40 hours, it's about $200, right? 44 hours, 220, right? So that means that is $5 an hour is what one has to earn.
Singh, what do you have to say about job losses? One of the issues.
I'm coming to that. Right? That's what one has to earn to be able to provide the basic necessities, not extra, basic for the family. So that's government, of course, right? That's what has to be provided.
That figure
right?
220 does not take into account the effect of the social wages. Is this a straight calculation?
That is the BNPL, and that is the
Does
figure
not
we're
take
going
into
by, right?
account the
Right?
impact
And
on
it's
social
not
wages.
going to make anybody rich. What we're saying is, in terms of job losses, we are saying the job loss threat has been a huge scaremongering thing by
it's
employers.
true.
We are saying, you remember the time,
the thing about the
remember
micro-enterprise
Vijay,
owner,
you
the guy who
remember
owns a small
that when
business.
Father Kevin Barr was the chair of the Wages Councils,
remember Father Kevin Barr, yeah.
Father, when the recommended Wages Council rates were announced, proposed, employers objected. Then there's employers have always objected. There's never been a time. I was a member of various wages councils for many years. Government.
Moving
transport.
forward, job losses, how will you deal with them,
But
Mr. Singh?
when they were asked to come and show why they can't pay, right? None of them came up and showed their books. What we are saying is that there will be no job losses because there are many of these employees who are making a lot of money, but they're making their workers get $3, $4 an hour. You look at the supermarkets, look at the hardware companies, right? We will say our policy will require them to pay. If they can't pay, they come and show the books. If they afford to pay, they pay. Those who can't afford to pay will be the ones who be assisted. So the idea is to make sure that everyone earns a decent living
Then who's gonna
and
pay
without
for
losing the job. For those who can't afford to pay,
Yeah.
those who can't afford to pay, the government's going to pay that.
Pay what?
The difference in the
Why would
wage.
government pay that?
Why can't the government pay? It is another social.
But isn't it more
It is
sensible?
another social
Isn't it more
attention.
because a national minimum wage.
It is another social assistance that the
National
government gives.
minimum
It's just like
wage.
any other of the social packages.
National minimum
We are
wage
adding
is
that
the
as
lowest wage.
additional social
It's-
assistance to the workers for those workers whose employers can't afford to pay. And that to us will be very few.
When you set a national minimum wage, it should be set at the level at which the employer should be able to pay if they
It's
are
not about
responsible.
what
No,
the
hang on.
employer should be able to pay. It's
It
about
sh- it
what the
should not
person
be-
needs to live.
It can't
That's-
be. It
so
can't
you
be a
got wrong
national minimum wage.
wrong benchmarking.
It cannot be a national minimum wage if you have to subsidize it. That's not a national minimum wage. The national minimum wage should be at the level at which you
We're
don't
not
have to
talking about
subsidize.
national minimum wage. We're talking about a living wage. That's the difference.
But that's what I'm
We are
saying.
that we want
the
our
wage that you're
government.
putting it, the wage
Yeah.
you're putting it should not be one at which you
Who
have
will
to
you pay?
subsidize.
That's what people would want to know. Who
Who-
will you pay if a company shows its books, they
And
can't
is-
pay $5 an hour? Who will you pay?
We will try
Who
and
will you
we will
subsidize?
work with the employer. Suppose the employer comes and says, "Listen, we're paying $3 an hour now. We can't afford to pay this." We'll show the books, make an assessment. Experts will make an assessment of whether or not that employer can really pay or not. If the employer can't pay, we will try and see how best to get the pay the
What will
difference
you
to
do?
get so.
What will you do after that? Like if the employer you have proof the employer can't pay, what will you do?
Then the government will support or supplement that income, or provide that employer tax incentive or tax exemption on the salary
But-
paid.
but
I mean,
what
there are
about-
different ways of doing it.
Okay. That's for employers.
Yeah.
There are people who are not companies who pay
Yes.
people to do work for them.
Yes.
There are some guys who are working $200, $300 a week and has a babysitter.
No,
paying out-
there's no such thing.
No, there is. There is.
I mean-
$200 a week.
No.
They have a babysitter, they pay them $2.60. All of a sudden, the price goes up, doubles. Person cannot afford it. What happens? Better for them to leave their job.
Why is
somebody
it
loses their-
so
No, I'm
wrong
talk-
for a babysitter
I'm
to earn
talking about-
$5 an hour and be
Yeah,
able to feed her
But
family?
if they cannot afford, if
Why
this
should-
person
we are
cannot
saying,
afford to have
we
the
are saying-
babysitter,
we are
what
saying-
happens?
we are
What
saying-
happens in this
Will
case?
you
The
assist
babysitter
those
does
families
not
as
have a
well?
job.
Yeah, we are saying.
What happens to the farmer
that-
in the village, who cannot afford to pay much higher and then has to all of a sudden just double the wage that is given? What happens
Agricultural
to this
sector,
kind of
I mean, let's not bring in formal employment in the agricultural sector. There's a different kind of work patterns.
No, it's
right?
a national minimum
Right?
wage applies
Yes.
across the board.
No, it doesn't. I mean, that's a lie. That's a lie, isn't it? That is a
National
lie.
minimum wage applies
Your
across the
national
board, everywhere.
Minimum wage only applies for waged employees.
No, for everybody.
Yes, for
if
wage.
you're a house girl, it applies.
Yes, of course.
Everybody.
Those who are on a wage.
It's
How
a
will you assist
national
those
minimum
families,
wage.
Mr. Attar Singh?
Those-
Do you have any plans for
Well,
the families? They are
firstly,
listening
we've
as
got to
well.
understand, Vijay, that low-income earners don't hire house girls and housemaids. Right? They are hired by people
We
middle-income
have
earners.
we have
and
received
others,
messages
right?
from some
Those-
people about that
Yes.
issue.
Yeah,
And,
what
and
they
those
say.
and those who
Mr.
are
Singh,
unable.
Mr. Singh,
let me say.
and I had also asked this question earlier in other talkbacks, and they wanted to know what type of subsidy will they get as families.
That's the point we're
How will
making.
we
That
subsidize?
those all employers, whether it's a company or an individual,
So
if they're
individuals will
unable-
get it. So if
Any employer.
if a couple they're going to work, they've got a babysitter, or they have to pay $5 an hour. So those families can also qualify for some assistance.
Yes, if they're unable to afford,
What type of assistance will they get?
they will that kind of assistance package we will really have to be looked at, right?
But that's
Because
my
we're saying,
point.
we are saying that there'll have to be a package. In that package, the packaging may be different for different kind of employees.
This
right?
is the point.
Yeah.
A national minimum wage should be set at a level where a national minimum wage is not meant for large companies. It's meant for your small micro enterprise, the small ones, the lowest level at which a wage should be paid. It should be set at a level where there's no need for this subsidy, because it's not meant for the large companies. It's meant for the smallest employer, the smallest one. So it's trying to protect at the same time the people that are most exploited, and then at the same time making sure that the small micro enterprise that are trying to grow. Government has a strong emphasis now on micro enterprise. Grow them, grow them, grow them. Maybe they become a small enterprise. Then maybe they become a medium enterprise. But if you just whack this wage increase all of a sudden, these micro enterprises collapse. Small ones can collapse. What happens to them? And not just the micro enterprises, it's the individuals who hire people to do other things for them. They have to afford this level of $5 per year. National minimum wage are priced equally across the board. And it should not be a necessity for subsidies from government.
Mr. Singh, very quickly before I move to Mr. Usamate on this issue, how soon will the people know about the packages for the individual families if they fall in that bracket? How soon will you know?
That packaging, Vijay, would be known. We said that in the first 100 days we
Here we go again.
consulting. Yes, that's what we said.
It's going to be something that pulled from the sky.
We're going to be talking to people. We're going to be calling an economic summit on that, on these issues, economic issues, and then decide what packaging.
Thank you very much,
That's
Mr.
That's my
Usamate.
point. If you are sensible about setting your national minimum wage at a level which protects them by the exploited, and at the same time
It doesn't
make
protect. This is
sure.
the whole point.
No, hang on. But you forget the impact of the social wage that's
No,
coming through.
I don't
The social wage. The survey that we had showed that it reduced working poverty by 70%, and this is from the mouths of the people that we interviewed, the workers that are earning the less themselves. The social wage is coming through, helping them survive.
268 minister
But then,
can't be a wage.
remember
Is
the
anyone
impact of the
survival?
social wage coming through.
So that the social wage adds up by how many cents? By how many dollars?
I don't have
This is what you need to
but
show.
the
you need to
impact.
show. I
the
mean,
im-
don't just talk about social wage.
Listen,
if
listen.
268 and you add social wage, what does it bring the value of the wage to?
This was the feedback from the consultant. The
Yes.
social wage.
Yeah, you can't.
And
you
this
can't
is
tell us
this is the
Yeah,
feedback from
yeah.
the mouth of the people.
This is
that
just a
interviewed.
bogey.
This is the feedback from the
Yeah.
mouth. It reduced working poverty by 70%.
Yeah, but
That is the
what
impact
did
of
the
social
consultant
wage.
tell you? What was
That
the
is the
value
impact of the social wage
on
on the
hourly
lives
basis?
of the people there.
Okay, gentlemen,
Yeah.
Mr. Usamate, my question to you.
Yeah.
Your review is currently underway. It was announced in the 2018-2019 national budget on wages councils and the national minimum wage rate. What can you tell the people? By when will the final decision be made on that?
I think, the commitment has been made that it shall be done. At the moment, I don't have a definite date, but if the commitment has been done by government and this government delivers on what it says, it will be done.
Will it be done in the next few months, next year?
It'll be done next year.
Next year.
Next year, I believe.
So if FijiFirst comes into government, we expect an outcome regarding national minimum wage rate next year.
Not just the national minimum wage, but also the wage regulation orders. That is what was
All
announced.
the 10 wages councils.
Whatever was announced during the budget, there might be some new additional council. Who knows? Because those wages council was set up at the time when the economy was structured like that. Now there are new industries coming. There might
So it
be a
may
need.
increase from 10.
There
onwards.
might be a need to do that. But what I'm saying is, the minister has made that commitment, and it will be done.
You don't have any specific timelines?
No, I don't.
Now, gentlemen, cardiovascular diseases and diabetes are major concerns for Fiji. Diabetes accounts for the second highest rate of NCD-related deaths in Fiji. In 1980, the rate of diabetes was 10%, and in 2011, the rate had increased to 15.6%. Complication of diabetes has also increased, as such the amputation rate in Fiji is 1 in every 8 hours. According to a study carried out by the Pacific Eye Institute in 2011, eye complications were high among those with diabetes. Data collected by the Ministry's Health and Information Unit shows that a total of 669 amputations were done in 2015 alone, and similarly in 2016 a total of 791 amputations were recorded. Now, there was an increase in amputation rates from 12.1% in 2015 to 12.6% in 2016. What is your party's plan to reduce lifestyle diseases in Fiji, Mr. Attar Singh?
Well, lifestyle diseases can only first thing is about exercise, and that's one of the things about exercise, and everyone doing exercise. That's one thing. The next thing is that people should be able to eat healthy. And to be able to eat healthy, people need to be able to earn decent wages to be able to eat healthy. At the moment, as I said, people living in the poor families, I mean, those on minimum wage and wages council order rates, they can't afford to buy good balanced food. They can't provide their people good balanced food. A lot of their staff food intake is largely starch. They eat dal, they eat cassava, they have tea, they had rice, biscuits, right? These kind of things. So we need to provide people decent income so they can start eating better food, and that and of course exercise and everything else that goes with it to be able to help reduce lifestyle diseases.
Mr. Usamate.
Yeah, I think making sure that people have what they need in terms of incomes is important, but at the same time need to remember all the assistance that government is giving people, even though their incomes might be low at the national minimum wage, but all that social wage is coming through. Most important thing for all of these NCDs is food.
Yes.
Quality of food, the kind of food that they eat.
Absolutely.
That's why you will see the duty that we've been putting on all these imported fruits has been declining. There's a strong emphasis on government to make sure that people are eating the right kind of food. We notice the kind of developments that are going on. The Ministry of Agriculture is coming out with assisting people to plant their own fruits and vegetables. All kinds of initiatives like that to get people eating the right kind of food. One of the challenges that we have now is that bad food is glamorous. You see all the advertisements on TV making all this bad food very glamorous. Government has put in the taxation rates on sugar sweetened beverages, on alcohol, and on cigarettes. Why? Because these are the things that cause our hospitals to be full. Smoking is one of the things that we can try to, that if we are able to address it, has the biggest impact on reducing NCDs. The Pacific has signed up to a Pacific free of cigarettes or tobacco by the year, I can't remember what year it was. That has to be something that we target. Government is targeting that very strongly in its taxation initiatives, and I think there's a lot of strong emphasis on public health to make sure that people start changing their behavior, their attitude towards food, towards exercise, towards what they breathe, what they drink, the rest, and all of those things that have an impact on NCDs. And I think that will continue to be a very strong focus.
Now, we've asked you about FijiFirst manifesto. There's also messages coming in about that. So, is there a manifesto coming out in the next few days?
I haven't. We have been busy campaigning, so we haven't been keeping track. But I think if you think about the FijiFirst manifesto, it's basically look at what we've already done, the things that we've been doing so far. We've been improving the economy, improving people's lives, infrastructure, making things easier for business to set up. All of these things are things that we'll continue to tweak and fine tune to make sure we can enhance the quality of living in this country.
I can't really understand how a party could be going to elections, so important one, without a manifesto, without a written document saying what their policies would be. We are being grilled on our policies. These are just policies. This is not a budget. It's the policies. But yet FijiFirst is telling people, oh, trust us. Whatever we've done, we're just going to extend that into it. We got 5 days, 6 days from elections, and it's just it's not fair for the people of Fiji, for the voters.
You're
It's
right
just
to
not
respond,
fair.
Mr. Usamate.
When people have seen what FijiFirst has done, they have seen the amount of money that was budgeted for social welfare increase from 16 million to 107 million, 6 times over in a short space of time. They have seen the amount of money that was used for infrastructure development that used to be used from 1980 to 2006 of 3.5 billion doubled by this government within 10 years. They've seen that. They've seen the impact of that. They've seen what FijiFirst has done over these past 10 years. So they know that when FijiFirst comes in, as it will most surely come back, they will continue to fine-tune and improve these things.
Now, Mr. Singh, can NFP work with FijiFirst if you have to form a coalition?
No, we don't. We're not forming a coalition this time. Vijay, let me tell you that he claims he's going to win. Let me tell him, I think it's going to be a surprise. This election, our support has grown very, very, very. It is still growing as we go into the last few days of campaigning, and we hold the belief that we'll be forming government on our own. And I think our friends will be looking at.
What if you fall short and you have to talk to other parties? Who will you work with?
We are not thinking about that at this stage. There is a point at which we will have to reach. In the event no one reaches 50%, 26 seats, that will be issue to be looked at and discussed at that point in time.
So you'll talk to all parties?
We have, I think, at some stage, the leader did say that the NFP would be open to discussion with any party. With any party, of course, you look at the party's policies, their manifesto. But of course, here FijiFirst hasn't got a manifesto. So I don't know how we could be talking to them.
Mr. Usamate.
FijiFirst will win this election.
There you
And
go.
I'm not the leader of my party, so I can't anything about coalition like that. Well, we're very confident we're going to win this election. I don't have the mandate to say what we might do in any other if something else happens, but that's it.
Knowing that your policies are very opposing NFP and
Our
FijiFirst.
policies, we are the constitution, we are the government that put in the 2013 constitution. You
Yes.
Look at all those socio-economic rights, all those great things that had never been in the constitution before. Those great provisions that in the constitution that
All
protect
rights
the
that
things
can be
are
clawed back.
important to the Itoke, the preservation of the land, all of those things that's been put in place in that constitution. There's nothing I think in that constitution that is really bad for anybody in this country. The values of
That's why you
FijiFirst
fear it being
are
changed.
seen in that constitution. And it has continued to be seen in all the work that we do. We're the ones that brought security, equality to everybody in this country. Equality done by the FijiFirst government. And it's seen, it's manifest in everything that our leader says and does, and everything that the whole party stands for. And that is people see FijiFirst, whether we have a written manifesto or not, our manifesto is seen what we have done, what we have achieved.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Last question for our listeners on Viti FM and viewers on Fiji Village Facebook. Give us 3 reasons, Mr. Singh, why people should vote for NFP.
I think people know this time around that we are the party. Our manifesto is the document, the policy with which we're going. Remember, Vijay, last time around we only had 3 candidates, 3 MPs in Parliament, and we believe that they have done a very, 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 very excellent job. That they performed as good as 30. And this time around we have a manifesto that is talking about reducing cost of food by reducing VAT on 15 items. We also want to reduce VAT on 8 other items. We want to increase the living wage, grant people living wage up to $5 an hour. We want to give the sugarcane farmers $100 a ton. We want to build the Penang mill. We want to give better assistance to those with diabetes and overhaul the health sector. Those are kind of things, good things, all good things for people, and we believe those are good reasons for people to vote for us, including our education policy, where we're also offering first-year free education, university education, and also coming up with a new scholarship for all those earning below 30,000 for full university
You've
education.
given more than 3 reasons, but I let you go ahead
Yeah.
with that. But Mr. Singh, you've been trying since the 1990s to get into Parliament. You have been unsuccessful. Do you think this time you could get lucky? And what has been
I believe
issue where you
that
couldn't
this time around
make it?
things are different, and yes, I look forward very much to be a member of Parliament this time around. I will be. In fact, I look forward to be part of the government.
Do you believe you have enough support this time around? compared to
Absolutely,
last?
absolutely. I think this time around the workers and then the people have seen, they are upset. Many of them are angry with FijiFirst's performance and the way they've approached things. So yeah, there is a huge change, as you say.
Why do you think you've been trying since the 90s and still not been able to get into Parliament?
Well, I think in 99 was the first time I contested, and I haven't been able to get into Parliament because my party didn't get into Parliament.
Now, Mr. Usamate, 3 reasons why people should vote for FijiFirst.
Well, I think this country needs strong leadership that does not flinch in the face of opposition, that knows what it stands for, and will not give way on the things that it sees that it's supporting. FijiFirst Party has such a leader. He's a leader who's committed to his ideals. He's been willing to take a lot of pain, a lot of things in the pursuit of those ideas. Secondly, the people of this country know what FijiFirst has done. They know the difference that it's made to ordinary people's lives. People that needed assistance, it was given. They were able to provide what is needed. They know that this is a party that walks the talk. And thirdly, this is a government that has given us stability, prosperity, and equality for all. Those things are very important for us. If you want growth, you must have stability. FijiFirst, the government of Bainimarama has brought about that stability. People have confidence in this country. Investment is pouring in. Things are growing. Things are getting better. People of this country can see that, and they know that if they want a better Fiji for tomorrow, the party that they have to support is FijiFirst.
Mr. Usamate, you left your education field to get into politics. You succeeded in 2014 and became a minister, Minister for Health, Minister for Employment. How confident are you that you'll come back into Parliament?
I'm confident that FijiFirst is going to make it back into Parliament, and I think that's, for me personally, that's the most important thing, because I want to see the continuation of this FijiFirst movement. I hope that with God's grace that I'll be one of the successful members, and if it is so, I'll be there to serve the people of my country.
That's Straight Talk for tonight. Thank you very much, Minister for Employment and FijiFirst candidate Mr. Jone Usamate and National Federation Party candidate Mr. Attar Singh. I'm sure the listeners and viewers got your points of views in relation to a number of issues, and I hope that it continues to make your job easy for those people who are yet to make up their mind, or for those who wanted to know about policies of different parties. Now, Straight Talk will be back on Sunday night. We'll first have an Itoke talkback between FijiFirst leader Prime Minister Vorenge Bainimarama and Sodelpa leader Sitiveni Rambuka. That's in the Itoke language from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. This Sunday, November 11th, on Viti FM, which will be again going live on Facebook via Fiji Village. And we will also have Straight Talk, that's in the English language, that will start from 7:30 p.m. this Sunday. So we will be back again in studio, so see you then.
The 2018 general elections, the issues that matter, the people that matter. This is Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan, brought to you by Extra Supermarket.
Sabah